welcome back to a Wednesday with another Releasing the Genius podcast, where we interview people that have had a global impact everywhere around the world. Now, after our last podcast, we received an email, and I'm actually really glad that we received this question. The question was, I'm in North America. How is it relevant to me that you're interviewing someone from Pakistan and someone from China? Well, if you remember back to our first podcast, it was with Imran Masood. He brought in 2.2 million new students that could not afford education into the education platform, or into free education. And then there's Dr. Spencer Fowler, who was able to remold, well, the top gifted students. And so when you take a look at these two spectrums of students, the question isn't, how are they going to be educated? The question really becomes, who's going to educate them? And so in Pakistan, it's very important, well, and also everywhere in the world, is education must not fall in the hands of the ill intent. Really compassionate people need to be educating the masses and the top gifted students if we want this world to survive. Now, I just really wanted to put that out there because I think that it does have an impact on us here in North America. Imran Masood had 2.2 million students. He needed to make sure that they were getting the proper education. Dr. Spencer Fowler, he has the job to make sure that this top elite student, and as he said, if you are coming in here for celebrity status or for wealth, this isn't the program for you. You need to have compassion. And so that's something that they are both instilling into the students. Now, the next guest that we have in is Alvin Brown. I've been working with Alvin Brown for, I don't even know how many years. I've been working with him for, I think, 4 years, mainly on my own personal body and my mental well-being as well. So he, and I've written down some of these notes here. So he's had 30 years in the health, wellness, and peak performance arena. He's worked with some notable people such as Rodney Coleman, Jay Cutler, and Mike Kostka, the NHL player that once played for the Leafs. And if you don't know who Rodney Coleman is, or Jay Cutler, they're both legends in the Olympiad arena. So Alvin Brown works with, he's wellness entrepreneur, manual osteopath, integrated peak performance advisor, educator, speaker, and author, and of the Journey to Personal Greatness, Mind, Body, and Soul. That's a great book. And also husband and father of 4. So both Kim, and everyone here knows, Kim is my mother. We're family friends with Alvin and his family. This is someone that I try to see at least once a month and get 2 hours with him. Because I also know that he has a really great story. So a few weeks before COVID hit, Kim had the chance in our office in Toronto to interview him and to really understand his entire story. So before we jump into that, Kim, is there anything that you wanted to touch on?
Yeah, actually, there's a couple of things. First of all, the intent of this whole podcast is to find people who are changing the world in their own way, in a positive way, and to provide insight to what makes these people tick and how are they doing it. And I would say that Alvin is one of those people, and he's definitely one of those people. He has an incredible story. We often think that people who are born into wealthy families or successful families have a better chance to be successful themselves. And this is a story of quite the opposite. And it's really good to listen to him. I think what you said, Nathan, about saving the world, it's an interesting comment. You would say that at your age. There's a lot of people very concerned about the future of our world. Where is it going? What's happening? And it's important that we all learn, and this is also for students too, to understand, oh, this is how you can get there. And this is what makes this person tick. And here's a great story. And Alvin is an incredible story. He is world-class with what he does. He is being asked to travel all over the world. People will pay for him just to go and work with them so that they can get some of his insight and also some of his healing. So without ado, let's get to this interview.
I'm from Kingston, Jamaica, born to a single mother in 1960s, the late 60s, and she's already had four before me. So you can imagine now when I think back now, living where how I'm living now with my partner, and we have our four kids, four, she had five, and we're living in a abundant time, different time in so many ways, socially, economically. This is Jamaica in the 60s. I'm wondering how she did it. So now I've got a ton of respect for her, even more thinking how she raised five kids in a rough part of Jamaica. So now as you get older, your level of respect and appreciation goes up as I think back. So we moved around a lot. A lot of people ask me the question, do you ever go back to Jamaica? And I always say I haven't been back the last time I went back was 40 years later, because we moved around so much. I didn't have a chance to develop roots where my older siblings did. They have friends that they could call and go back to, and most of my family left and went all over England and Canada, Florida. So I never developed that friendship, and my mom and I moved a lot.
So when you say a lot, what do you mean, and what types of places? What's that?
Well, wherever we could lay our heads, basically.
What do you mean by that?
So that means staying in bars. My mom had a friend who had an empty bar that we'd stay in. Once the patrons left, we stayed at night. Anywhere, friends, anywhere we could find it. And when we did find a place for extended periods of time where my mom could scrape get us some rent, it was months before we had to move again. So it was this constant nomadic movement, and until 1977, when she managed to come to get a sponsor, and we came to Canada. And only her and I came. We left my other siblings in Jamaica.
So when you were moving around so much, did you go to school? Were you of school age? What was happening there?
Good question. My memory's sketchy on what happened there, but I do remember my sister telling me that I used to go to school with her because there was no babysitter. So I used to end up going to school with her. So my older sister had to take care of me while my mom worked. So school, don't have a lot of memory. I do remember going, but it's not that clear on whether I'm pretty sure I did. I'm pretty sure I did.
Okay, and you went with your sister.
Regularly. I went with my sister when no one could babysit. She would take me to school. So, with her.
Do you think, were you too young to go to school at that point? And
I think so. I think I must have been.
And you sat in class with your sister.
Sit in class with my sister, and yeah, she still tells me the story. She tells me the story.
Okay.
Because those memories are sketchy, but yeah,
Cool.
yeah. So
Okay.
you can see.
So when you moved to Canada then, it sounds like when you were in Kingston that it was really whatever could happen, like it was just really survival by the sounds of it. Yeah. And so how did your mom save up? Do you know what she did?
I don't know how she did that. I don't know how she did that, actually, when I look back at the fact that I remember days we didn't eat, though. So maybe she put away money at that point, or someone might have lent her the money. But I remember significant days when there was no food in the fridge and we were literally surviving on. In Jamaica, a common staple was white bread with some white sugar on it, and that was it. Or you could do condensed milk between the bread, and that was it. Or I often make a joke that when you look in the fridge, all you see the Arm& Hammer, and that was the only kind of sustenance in that fridge. It literally is. It was. But you know what? The thing about it is, when I think back, we had family, so that was a common thing that got us through. Only time I realized I was in any situation that was dire is when I came to Canada and had a comparison, because everybody there was in the same situation. So it is what it is. So that's how you get through. It is what it is.
So let's talk a little bit about your relationships as a family, and what made that so important to you? Because I know that was so important as you're growing older too. And when you were a small child, how did you make friends? I mean, probably all the kids are wondering, well, what kind of friends did you have? What happened? So can you just talk to us a little bit about that, and then we'll talk about Canada. So.
Okay. Well, in Jamaica, like I said, I do remember one, I think it was a cousin. So that was sketchy again. I remember having one cousin, and I was young, so we were really close. And actually, he ended up getting hit and passing away. So I do remember that. But there wasn't a lot of that bonding. I didn't do a lot of bonding because we moved so much, and I was always with my mom. I was always wherever I was in tow with somebody to keep me safe and I felt like the golden child because I was always with her, right? So Jamaica was, again, we had memories of creativity. I would say that thinking back about the situation, we were very creative. I remember making a horse out of the mop stick because it would hang like the mane, and we do cowboys and Indians, and we do make bow and arrows out of twigs, and it was just, and the lizards on the fence. And so I remember really having a lot of fun with just things we'd find.
Yeah.
Spools of thread through kids today won't know this, but the spools of thread through a hanger, and you'd use that as a race with that.
Oh.
Or tires that weren't any good, we'd race them down the road, things like that. So it was always, there wasn't any Game Boys, and so it led to a lot of creativity.
Cool. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's talk about that creativity, to bring that back in if you can, because I bet that's a big part of what you were doing and later. So let's talk now about coming to Canada. What was that like? How did it feel to you? You said there's a big difference. What was the difference?
Well, a huge difference, because when you're coming from a culture of, one, you're in your own culture. Two, you get placed into a whole different culture. Because I came to today we talk about diversity, inclusion. There wasn't any of that in 1970s. You didn't have diversity, inclusion. And then my accent when I arrived in Canada. Today, arriving with the accent, Jamaican accent in Canada is pretty cool. You'd be like, oh, he's cool. Look, I got this friend. It wasn't like that when I got here. It was asking various questions that were, it wasn't becoming of those questions they were asking, question about your color, about your hair. Everyone was pointing, touching, and derogatory comments. So you had to, and I came here alone. I didn't have my support of my siblings to go home to protect me or whatever it is. So it was a lot of character building then. It was a lot of character, and my mom worked a lot, so I was left alone. So talk about creativity again. When I think back about those times, you had to be real creative, and then you had one channel, believe it or not, you had one channel on the TV. You didn't have 1,000 channels. You had one channel, no streaming, no internet. So you had to really have yourself together.
So how did you, I can remember coming back from Uganda, and I had a very British accent at that time, and the kids would always say to me, can you say cookie for me? And I would say, and we didn't say cookie, we say biscuit. And so they always went, oh, say this word, say that word. Yep. And so I very quickly tried to figure out how to have a Canadian accent.
That's right.
What are some of the things that you did? And this may help other kids too. If they're feeling like people are picking on them or something's happening, what did you do?
Yeah, same. I had the same as you, because you can imagine, I hated spelling in class or reading, because there's certain times when you have paragraphs that you had to read out of a book, and I just always looked ahead and wondering when my time was coming so I could practice the TH words, because Jamaicans are not great with TH words. We say ting, that, there. So I remember looking ahead trying to get there, because they would always, that's where they'd always get me, is like you said, tree. And so I had to learn, and I had to really assimilate and again reduce the exposure to all the language piece. So that was the biggest piece, is the language. And again, I was in a predominantly white culture where any difference you'd be picked on. Anyway, again, there wasn't today we're very lucky. There's not the education about differences. So you were out there.
So how did you overcome that, though? What else did you do besides trying to change your language? What did you do to keep your confidence and stand up to people and other kids and so on? What kind of things, or what did you think inside your head? What helped you get through it?
Back then it wasn't strategic. I don't think there was anything strategic about it, but I think it was quickly becoming a chameleon, assimilating to the music, assimilating to the culture really quickly. What did they like? Do that. kind of blend in. But what it did, if I roll it forward, what it did teach me to do was adapt. And yeah, adapt to your environment. You have to do it really quickly, dude, because at that age, at 9, 10 years old, 11 years old, there's no real strategy to that. And bullying, there wasn't any concern about that. You just had to adapt. And the human being is an amazing, when we want to, we can adapt.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Mm-hmm.
So now can you explain what you did after you got here, some of the other things you did? Because to build you up to where you are owner of a fairly big business, you're very successful in what you're doing, very successful. People want you to travel all over the world to be with them and to work with them, to talk to them. You speak, you do a lot of different things. Can you describe then what you did? What's your life to get to where you were?
Well, living, there's two things that drives you. Either you want to get out of pain or move towards something. And I'm a more move towards person. And I grew up in Ontario housing and seeing, cockroaches. You're living with, in one small little apartment with, at one point, I was 14 years old, where I was just transitioning from elementary school to high school, and we had to move again to Toronto and live with my brother in a small, and I just said, that's it. I'm not doing it. Sports actually saved me, and being exposed to another option. I was exposed to another option. I saw somebody living the way I wondered how I could live that way. And I chose, when we started cramming again, I said, I don't have to live like that. So I actually left home at about 13 or 14, went back to my half an hour outside of Toronto, Pickering, and I stayed on friends' floors. I did whatever I had to do to not go back to cramming in with everybody, because you go in the elevator and it's just, the place is disheveled. You could smell the garbage chutes, and I just didn't want any of it. I didn't want any of it. So I left, and when you put your mind to something, and I got odd jobs. I worked at, the local restaurants and stuffed egg rolls. I did, you name it, delivered flyers, whatever it is to get by. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do, just didn't want that. I wanted something else other than that. So I did whatever I had to do and got by, and then sports happened. Once sports gave me goal setting, it gave me teamwork, it gave me aspirations to be something that I could do better, I could be better, and it gave me a goal. And it showed me how to set goals, it showed me how to show up, it showed me, if a teen or someone doesn't have a role model or someone to guide them, I think there's nothing better than organized anything, sports.
So where'd you find the sports? Was this at school?
Yeah, that's the first place I started, because I couldn't afford anything else.
Yeah.
So I started with wrestling at school. My friend happened to, and at that point I had a desire to be the baddest man on the planet at one time, because my siblings could fight at the drop of a hat, and I hated fighting. So I thought it was a weakness, so I went to short my weakness by going into different things. So I did martial arts, I did boxing, I did wrestling, so many things. Thinking I was trying to fill my weakness, but I still didn't enjoy it, but it was something, it's a weakness I thought I had to fill.
Yeah.
So that was the game changer for me, doing sports. And once I won once, all somebody has to do is win once, and they get the taste of winning. Achieving anything once, you get that feeling, and you just keep riding that feeling. You know that something's possible, something else is possible.
So putting yourself in a place where you can win and you can succeed, not necessarily win, but it is succeeding to a level that you wanted to, really helps a person. So I'm going to put that as number one.
Yeah, and so that's a good distinction, I would say, too, is when I say win, you personally winning. So it could be passing a grade, it could be, doesn't have to be beating everybody. It's winning in your own right.
Okay.
That's a win.
Achieving what you had aimed to do.
Yeah.
Okay. So sports. And then what else happened in high school?
Well, in high school, sports, and then I met my partner, my wife, my girlfriend at the time, and she was also going through she had her own journey. So together, we had our journeys, and that kind of bonded us through the both turbulent times, and so that kind of really bonded us and galvanized the effort together. And so I picked up dance through her. I started dancing, ballet, tap, jazz, all that kind of thing. And again, that gave me a win. So all these wins put together. So high school, I barely, by the way, got out of high school because no one. That's a generalization, but I didn't feel anyone had confidence in me in school. Because back then, the teachers weren't that supportive, in my opinion. That's the one I've met. That's just my opinion. For instance, my wife and I were in the same class at one point, and we ended in the same homework. She got an A, I got a C for the same work. So at that point, I said, it's not for me. No one's ever gone before me either to school. So I'm like, this is not for me.
From your family, no
From my family.
Yeah.
No one before me has ever finished or gone on to higher education. So getting out of high school, the goal for me in high school was to not go to summer school. And that was the goal.
All right.
And if I got that done, it was a good day.
Yeah. Good. So, but you didn't, high school wasn't your last education.
No, it
so
wasn't.
you ended up doing so much more.
Yeah.
So how did that happen?
Well, that happened after I left. I realized that the narrative in my head was wrong about...
What do you mean by narrative in your head?
My narrative in my head, it wasn't for me. It wasn't for my type of people.
So that's what you were saying to yourself.
Yeah, that was what I was saying to myself.
That's not me.
It's not for me.
That's not for me. I'm not in...
And especially with my color, too. Only people that goes on are privileged, and they're white, or whatever it is, whatever the narrative I had in my head. Or if you were black, you had to be special, or you sold out. These narratives
Weird
running
things.
in my head.
Okay.
Those are what was running in my head. It wasn't for me. Any excuse to say why I wouldn't do it. And it was all excuse. And then just so happened that sports was ending for me because I thought I was going to be a professional athlete. That's how I was going to get there. I was going to get to my goal by being a professional athlete. And when that started coming to an end, I fell in love with the human body, how the body worked. And I was also fascinated and fixated on becoming... I knew everything about boxing. I knew everything about martial arts. So the fixation on that was... I had boxes and books, and I could tell you everybody and I had a fixation on it, addiction to it. So what I did was, when it was coming to an end, I transitioned that addiction to the body. And then I started to really dive in. So from there, I went back, and I actually went to bring up my math from where it was. And I actually ended up getting 90s in math. And when I went to an adult learning, because I wanted to prepare for university. So I went back and so it showed me that if you have the right support, where you are now is not where you're going to end up. If you have the right support, it's everything. And the right guidance.
And I feel you really wanted to do this.
I really wanted to do something better than I was doing. All I knew, and I saw a Nike quote that said, all I knew is that I didn't want to be average. And that kept driving me.
Yes.
All I knew is I didn't want to be average. So I went back, and once I started going back to college, I actually went to DeVry School of Education for a year. Followed my brother, went to DeVry. Thought I was going to be an electronic technician because I liked the way he pulled things apart. That fascinated me, how he could put it back together. But that lasted a year. It wasn't for me, but I learned a lot in that whole thing. It gave me confidence to go back. And then I went to college and I studied fitness leadership, went back into fitness because that was where I was anyways. And from that led to other colleges, and then 2 degrees now, and so on. So it just, once it started rolling, I got more confidence that I can do it. The rest was easy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you talk about getting the right support. What does that mean? Right support. What was the right support for you?
So when I go back, so one of the questions that people ask me is, how did you do it? And when I think back, it was this idea. I know my mom, unconditional love. If anything, so I've seen some examples too, because I'm always a thinker. I've seen some examples of people who didn't get. They may have had the home outside. It looked like it, but they didn't feel they got the support. The unconditional, the feeling that the love is unconditional. Because there's sometimes when kids can feel like there's a condition to the love. If you're a good girl or good boy, or if you did this, if you brought home this, see, my mom, what I felt was I literally could do anything and she'd be happy with it.
Interesting.
I'm proud of it. So that's the unconditional love. And I feel that's a game changer for a lot of people who have nothing. But when you feel you can't fail because you have a safe place to land, I feel that's the key, that you can do anything. That's a confidence piece.
Well, this is really interesting because when I was growing up, my parents never said, "We love you, I love you." It just wasn't something you did back then.
Yeah.
And we just knew they do.
They do.
It wasn't questioned.
It doesn't have to be said.
And now I'm hearing everybody, well, you have to always say, "I love you, I love you, I love you." And I think, well, it's nice to hear that. And then sometimes I wonder, just knowing that no matter what, like, why do you have to hear that? It's nice to hear, but it's not necessary for the love. Yeah.
Well, 93% of communication is nonverbal.
Yeah.
So 7% is what you say. 55% is body language. 38% is tonality and all the other things in between. So you can tell somebody I love you, but it doesn't come through. 93% doesn't come through. Or you could say nada. Some people are raised not hearing that, but they know how the person shows up. They show up every day. They're at everything you do. They're supporting everything you do. But that's not a thing they grew up hearing or saying, so they don't do it. But they do it in action, which is way more important than lip service.
Interesting. Yeah, it's good to hear. Yeah, good. Okay, so the work you're doing now, after all of that, explain what you do, because you are an osteopath.
Yeah.
And maybe you can explain to the kids what is an osteopath first,
Yeah.
and then what you do over and above being an osteopath, and what will help kids become successful in what they're doing. It doesn't matter what they're doing, because I know you talk a lot about this, and there's things that are in everybody's lives that help make you successful.
Yeah.
So if you could talk about that a bit.
So osteopath, first of all, an osteopath is someone who looks at the body, the human body, in a really integrated way. So they look at soft tissue, the muscles, they look at the joints, they'll look at the nervous system, they'll look at the organs within the body and integrate it back into the whole. There's a thing unique to osteopathy called craniosacral therapy, which is looking at the brain and the spinal cord, and the tailbone and the head, and how that integrates. And they go with an idea that the body has a natural rhythm. As long as you're alive and living and breathing, your body has rhythms. There's rhythms of the heart, there's rhythm of the circulation, there's rhythm of the organs as it moves food along, there's rhythm of the bladder. So your body's filled with rhythms. And even outside of us, the earth, the environment, it's got rhythms in how there's rhythms all over. The ocean comes in and there's rhythms. So we learn to feel rhythms in the body and return that rhythm back to what we call normal, which we have a standard for that. So osteopaths integrate in a really wide range of tools and bring that to the table. So that's how that integrates. And so I've tied in also, I'm fascinated with how I've tried Chinese medicine and acupuncture, because I like the way they throw in wood, fire, water, metal, and they bring the elements together, and they don't treat symptoms. They treat your chi, which is the body's natural force, living force. You'll hear this word chi a lot, or in prana with the breath. Everyone calls it the life force. Everyone has a different little way of describing it, but it's the way that says there's a certain thing about the human body that's the difference between a living and a body that's not living is this animation. And what animates it is this life force. And that's what we look for. And I fell in love with that. So I studied everything from energy medicine to massage therapy to acupuncture, Chinese medicine, nutrition, because I believe that we are an integrated whole, and you are not walking into my clinic as a joint only. You're not walking in as a muscle only, not meridian only. It's everything comes together. And at the end of it, I started to look at the mindset. I got my degree in psychology and neurolinguistic programming, which is a whole other area of looking at how we use our brain to function, and so on.
So if I'm young, or I'm a teenager, and I was thinking, that kind of sounds cool. What do you have to do to get up to that? Like, what's your education? It sounds like you took a course here, took a course there. Is there anything you have to do in order to be an osteopath, and then to bring in all this other integrated healing?
I would say underlying everything, and I heard one of your students say this. I forgot his name, but he does interviews on CBC, I think. But he talked about curiosity. Never lose your curiosity. And that's what I have, is a curiosity, because without curiosity, we wouldn't be enjoying the things we do now. Someone said, how can it be done better? Why isn't it like this? And they're curious. And if you look at Tesla, Elon Musk, he's curious. Bill Gates was curious. Steve Jobs was curious. That's one thing I could say. I wouldn't say go out and learn anything. I'd say stay curious. And it will lead you to your passion.
Neat.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for kids, for parents, for the general person, you talk about body, mind, and soul. Can you explain that a little bit, and some of the things that people need to think about to be high performing, to be successful in their lives? What are some of the things that you would recommend for them?
So, the thing about peak performance is it's not expensive. It's easy, but what's easy to do is also easy not to do. Meditation. I believe everyone should slow down and just be quiet for a bit, especially in North America. We rarely ever, we go. And so big one is meditation. Really easy. There's some apps on that people can download: Calm, Headspace, Insight Timer. So many things to guide you. Today's world is not a lack of information or resources. We just don't do it. So meditation is one piece. Gut health is another piece. Seeing someone who's educated on taking care of the internal, because there's a lot of information now about gut health and the brain. They're calling it the second brain, because the health of your guts, serotonin, melatonin, acetylcholine, so all these chemicals are created first in the gut, and then they feed the rest of the body. They realize that the gut is the source of a lot of issues with people. And when kids get stressed, they have a lot of gut aches. That's how the psychologists will recognize they got gut aches, because it's the mind and body. So that's one thing they can do, is meditation, take care of the gut, also what they eat, what goes in, and regular exercise, movement. It doesn't have to be gym or formalized structured exercise, just movement. Get out there and move. That's a big thing. So those are some of the things I think you can really integrate. That's easy, free. Don't have to do anything expensive, get a gym membership and get this huge program. No, it's literally the simple things in life. Sugars are a big one. Monitoring your sugars. I mean, it's difficult. I'm not going to say eliminate, because it's very difficult today to not get it in something, but really be mindful of what's going in. And simple things. But like I said, what's easy to do is easy not to do as well.
Sounds like you need some discipline.
A little bit, at least. A little bit.
Yeah. So are there things that we should all be doing every day? You said that we should do some movement, meditation, watch what we eat. Anything else that would help?
I would say, journaling is another key thing if you want to talk about it. Reflecting on your day. Because when I coach a group coaching that I do, I call it epiphanies. Life throws us a lot of lessons, but if we live in a city, the metaphor I use, pretend you live in and you probably do live in a city, you will never see a shooting star in a city. There's too many distractions, too many lights. Go to the country with no distraction, you see a lot of shooting stars. And when we see them here, we're like, wow, we wish on them because it's like it's something amazing. But you go there, they're everywhere. So life throws us lessons like that. There's a lot of distractions, we can't see them. We keep repeating the same lesson. If you have quiet and less distraction, you see lessons and you're like, wow. So I believe in journaling, stepping at the end of the day or beginning of the day and journal. How did it go? What are some of the things I kept doing? Because those are lessons and if we don't, just like school, if you don't pass those lessons, you will repeat them.
Yeah.
They will be repeated.
That's
So,
for sure.
so some real simple things. Again, nothing I just suggested in any of that involves income levels. It just involves, as you said, discipline. I'm not even talking about running a marathon discipline. I'm talking about simple, daily disciplines.
Or habits.
Habits. Yeah, build the habits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, this has been really fascinating. I think as a child, you were imaginative. You didn't, it sounds like you never felt sorry for yourself. You just...
Didn't have time to stop and do that.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't really matter
Yeah.
where we've come from, is where we want to go to,
Yeah.
is what I heard also.
Yeah.
You know, it was that passion, that want, being very clear that this was not for me later, that when you were 13 years old, that you wanted another type of life.
That's right.
So once you focused on that, more things opened up, and you started to see more things as it came, and then your life has been a whole journey. One thing led to another, which led to another.
Yep.
And
connections.
and it's I always find this interesting because as a child I can remember I wanted to do one thing, and as you're growing up it's like you think you're going this way, and then life has its turns, and many turns. We don't know where it's going to actually lead, and but if you've got a focus and you're fascinated with something, it leads to where you really should be.
And you know, I'll jump in on that. Jim Rohn, love Jim Rohn. If any of the kids watching, his last name's Rohn, Jim Rohn. Look him up. Great philosopher, passed away a good while ago now. But he left some great nuggets behind. And one thing he said, it's a set of your sail.
So
The set of your sail.
set of your sail.
So if you're going out sailing, no motor, just your sail, and you want to get to a certain destination, the winds will come in and they'll blow any way they want. Winds don't have a direction, they just blow. But if you set your sail to where you want to go, you'll end up getting there. So every day when you wake up, you set your sail. Where do you want to go? Because nature hates a vacuum, and if you're not making plans for yourself, someone else will or something will. If the news on the radio station is telling you how to feel, that's how you're gonna feel. If your feed on your Instagram or your TikTok is telling you how to feel, that's how you're gonna feel. So that's not setting your sail. Setting your sail is there's a destination I wanna go, and that's what I'm setting my sail for that day. I wanna be happy, set your sail. Because there's gonna be winds. There's gonna be someone cutting you off. There's gonna be kids teasing you. Those are the winds. But if your sail's set, you'll get to where you want to go. And that always stuck with me, because the sail is your attitude. Right? The sail is your attitude. What's your attitude? So if the kids out there have a destination they want to get to, set your sail every day, because there's going to be winds. It's not going to be a straight line.
Cool. I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good way to finish off.
Right.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Alvin. As you can see, he's incredible. He's
Appreciate
always
it.
got lots of good ideas. His imagination is still with him even as an adult. And you still love the world, and you love living, and and you love people too. So and you find it fascination in everything you do.
Yeah, fascination.
And that curiosity is so prevalent. Awesome. So thank you so much
Thank
for coming.
you for having me as usual. Thank you for all you do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Awesome.
Okay, that was a great interview, Mom. I I think it really shows that the biggest success factor we've seen is agility and grit. What do you think?
I also think passion and a belief in yourself and a belief in what you are doing. Because Alvin, for sure, he's not going to stand on the side and let other people sort of tell him how he's going to behave and what's important. He really feels for people. He has compassion for people, and he also has a really good sense of what's needed in this world and to help people move forward. So I'm really wondering, Nathan, in terms of the your generation, because I know for my generation it's really clear that this is what's needed. How do you feel this fits into what you're seeing going forward and what you're looking for, and people at your age? What do you think?
Well, his story, it's obviously a feel good story, right? Because if you were to just classify it as a movie, it's the underdog that persevered and is now successful. The things that you really need to take out of it is, well, are you giving impact to the world? And so he found that he was, and now he wants to duplicate that, and help other people. So that is, from my generation, that is what a lot of people are aiming towards.
I
Uh,
think also, sorry, I just think that there's something to him too, in that he's not going to blame anybody else if something goes wrong. He will take it himself. He's not going to sort of be affected by the overall norm or what people are saying. He's going to say he just took it into his own hands, and I think that's good for us all to remember, not to not to do this blame game or to make excuses, and that we can do something if we've got the right vision and the right focus. So it's always great to talk to him.
yeah. So thank you for everyone that's visiting. Thank you for listening to the Releasing the Genius podcast, where we're interviewing these amazing people. Please send us more emails. If you have questions, ask us anything, give us feedback. That's completely fine. Next week, what we have, Wednesday, 8 p.m., is with Dr. Pornpun. Now, she's an amazing lady out of Thailand, and she's making another huge impact as to bringing STEM to the entire portion of the continent, actually.
Oh, it's incredible what she's done. So I'm really looking forward to that too. Okay, thanks, Nate. See you. I see you, everybody.